Cha-cha-cha. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. My name is Dr. Emily Coriath, and I serve as your Director of Music. I am one of many people who will welcome you this morning, and that is very much on purpose. We are going to start by singing together, and we have a brand new hymn to share with you this morning, which is from the newly published virtual hymnal that came from the Unitarian Universalist Association. Because it is brand new, Austin and I will do the first verse for you so that you can kind of get the tune in your ear, and then we'll repeat the first verse so that you can join in singing. So will you rise in body or spirit, have a listen to this first verse, and then I'll bring you in so that we can do it together. It's okay if you're a little bit afraid, we'll do it together.
I'm Steve Todd, and I have done a number of things around here. Right now, I'm the lamp on the spiritual path. And as we light the chalice this morning, we'll say the words of our longtime covenant, which speaks to what it is we gather to do together. To covenant is to commit, that even if we fall short of our aspirations, we will not let go of them. And in that spirit, gathered in person and online, will you all together speak aloud our covenant? We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
My name is Rachel Alba. I'm the Director of Religious Education here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. And I have a little story for you this morning, so we want to start by just taking a deep breath. You made it on a Sunday morning to this building. So in this season of joy and lights and celebration, sometimes we don't always feel that way inside, and it can feel really uncomfortable. And that's okay, actually, because most of the stories that we tell at this time of year have far more complexity. We think about them as just joyful and celebratory, but there's actually a lot of middle ground there. Like the story of Hanukkah. So if you're not familiar with this story, there's a group of Jewish people called the Maccabees, and they're like a pretty small ragtag group that decides they want to uprise against a specific sect of Greeks that are occupying Israel and Jerusalem at the time. And the Greeks have come and taken over, and the Maccabees say, we are going to overthrow these Greeks. And so they try to do it, and to everyone's surprise, they actually win the battle. Then they go to the temple in Jerusalem, and they realize that their temple has been desecrated. It's been made not holy because the Greeks have put symbols of their gods in the Jewish temple. And now they have to reconsecrate it. They have to make the temple holy again. So they start trying to do this, and they miraculously find one jar of oil that will let a candle be lit for one day, which sounds like it's a pretty solid start, except that they need to actually take 8 days to consecrate more oil. And so they need this lamp to burn for 8 days because the light symbolizes that God is present in their temple. It's a constant up and down, right? So they win the battle, but likely there were lots and lots of casualties because the Grecian army was far more powerful. And they find the temples destroyed. They find some oil, but it's not actually enough to do the thing they need it to do. It goes up and down just like life. And just like life, we find these little points of joy to celebrate amidst something that can feel quite heavy sometimes. So perhaps these stories are not to help us celebrate everything that's good, but rather to remember that celebrating amidst the challenges is really important because celebrating is what keeps us going. It's not something we do when everything is right. It's something we do when we need to keep going. The Maccabees light candles in the rubble because they know it's important. They gather after the battle despite the sadness. They practice hope by acting in a hopeful way, not necessarily because they feel hopeful. And acting in a hopeful way allows them to focus on the future. And sure enough, the oil lasts longer than they thought it would. And that means they can move on to the next step. The oil lasting 8 days doesn't mean it's over. It means they can continue to start rebuilding. And people still celebrate that today, because celebrating each step is how we're able to take the next step when it's hard. So sometimes we celebrate because we feel celebratory, and sometimes we celebrate because we know the celebration is the thing that's going to carry us forward. And so this year we might not feel celebratory, but if we act in a celebratory way, we light the candles, we give someone a gift, we make the delicious piece of food that we love during this season, and it might just be enough to carry us through.
Similarly, the first verse of our centering song says, "We shine our light in search of hope." We don't shine our light because we're full of hope and we've got everything figured out. We shine our light because we're hoping that maybe shining the light means that more hope will come to us. So this is another new one. I know, I just got new song fever this week. But I said to David, but every song is the perfect song. So there's a reason. I'm not just like trying to shake you up. So I'll have Austin play this one all the way through, and you'll get plenty of chances to try your way through it. You're doing great. We shine our we
Let it put together, especially for those of us who are not feeling merry and bright right now. This is a place to come if, despite all the decorations, the cards, the music playing, the concerts, the parties, the advertisers who want you to believe that happiness is available, even on sale, this is somewhere to come if the idea that a merry little Christmas is all you need for your troubles, if that has a hollow ring. Those of us feeling a little blue this time of year can also feel edged out or forgotten. You're supposed to perform this mad frenzy of celebration and cheer and preparation. And I don't invite you into all of this to be dour and pessimistic and sad, but instead to say that I hope you'll find this a safe place to admit that maybe, in part or in whole, you're not okay at this moment. Maybe what you're really feeling, in part or in whole, is sad or discouraged or angry. This is a house to be real with your struggles and your questions, a community to remind you that exactly in the middle of that, you're not alone. And so in words, that you are held in a sure love larger than any of us, and that hope does always get the final word. Take a breath with me. Let me ask, before inviting us into prayer and meditation, by a show of hands, who in this last week had the experience of like profound self-doubt or being mean to yourself inside your head? There are, for folks online, there are a lot of hands. There are some people not yet prepared to admit this. And I'm sure there are a few who have done a lot of therapy. All right. I'm tracking on the same page. Let me invite you into a spirit of prayer and meditation. This kind of stillness, not just in your body or your mind, but a kind of stillness that lets all of who you are and what you're about catch back up with you again. An invitation to being here in this moment, being now, all of you. Spirit of life and love that we may call by different names and address in different ways. But that thing which all of us have had an experience of, that heart-opening feeling, that person-connecting experience, that thing which lives in the space in between you and another person when you see each other fully. Spirit of life, of love. Our prayer and our hope this morning, our intention is a gentleness and a compassion that begins with ourself. A gentleness, a kindness directed inwards, not just as a means to an end, to then direct it outwards and be good and do right, but also because doing good and being right involves being kind to yourself. Spirit of life and love, our hope, our intention, our prayer this morning is that in the space, the infinitesimally small space between that impulse to direct our own anger and resentment and dislike at ourself, between the moment of that impulse and the acting on it, that you're present in that moment, inviting us instead into breath, into pause, into a time of choosing what then to do with that feeling, into a kind of remembering that the same compassion we would extend to others, the way we would never speak so unkindly to a person we love, to a child we love, to our dog, that same thing we also deserve, that kind of kindness and compassion from ourselves. We'll be together in silence for just a moment. Amen. Yesterday, I turned the little hardy potted plant that sits in the basement window, the unkillable plant that sits in the basement window, I gave it its quarterly 180-degree rotation so that it more or less goes up straight instead of totally bending over to the little sliver of light that comes in. It's a stretch, maybe, to say that that's the same work that we're doing in ritual together. But we're like gardeners of our spirits. We're training our attention, we're training our heart, just like I'm training that plant to bend toward the light steadily. In this ritual work that we do every week, in moving our bodies, in placing stones to symbolize our joys and our sorrows, we're training and teaching, we're tending to ourselves, becoming people who recognize that beauty and tragedy are woven together in this world. They're all around us, all the time, both of them. And not just in our own lives. This isn't something that we do individually. We do it all together deliberately to remember that every other person in this room, in this world, their interior experience is just as rich, just as complicated as our own. And so in a moment when the music begins, for those of us here in person, I'll invite you, come forward if you feel moved. We'll start with the back of the room, and then the sides, and then the front. Silently take a stone and feel the weight of it. Feel your body slowly warm it. Feel the rough edges or the smooth, and let it be an emblem of your thankfulness or your worries or both. And then place it in the company of all of the others. And rest in silence together. I have 2 stones to place before we begin. At sunset, Hanukkah begins a celebration of the resistance and the resilience of the Jewish people. In Australia today, a gunman opened fire on a group of Jews gathered publicly to celebrate the holiday. At least 11 are dead. I say this most of all to recognize and to be in solidarity, in community and connection with the Jewish community here in Boulder, still recovering from the experience in June, the attack on Pearl Street. And to remember that there is no race except the human race. And I place a second stone to send our love and our care to Vince Orlando. Struck by a car 6 weeks ago, Vince moved to hospice just this weekend. And you can sign up for visits with him. You can share your stories and your love for him. The link to the Caring Bridge for him is in the weekly email. For his wife, Catherine, for his son, Charles, and for Vince himself, we love you and we're with you. Please come forward as you feel moved. We light 4 candles this morning. 3 to gently name and face different sorts of grief and loss hidden in plain sight during this holiday season, and a 4th candle for hope, hidden equally in plain sight. The first candle is to remember and hold our grief. We remember those people who we've loved and lost. We pause to remember their name, their face, their voice, the memory that binds them to us still. And we hold equally losses not just of loved ones, but the loss of relationships, the loss of jobs with the security that they bring, the loss of health, of joy. And as we gather up the pain of the past, we name all of this, not to just sink into it, but to face it so that we can let it go. Poet Jan Richardson writes this, called A Blessing for the Brokenhearted. She says, "Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it's better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves that time will heal the wound when every waking day opens it anew. Perhaps for now, it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made precisely for this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless. The first candle we light for grief as we sing our hope and intention together.
Love will make a place for us where everything is
The ocean is with one own and between of her. And this that Schwartz was Dan Uray. I this term of and all this generous and is just say wheezing get make read to now came after he of spiritual.
So I think
After